Borderlands 4 worse or better than Epstein? The main villain was great. It was no handsome Jack, of course, but luckily it was no Calypso twins because, I mean, let's be honest, that was not fun. The gameplay retained the same flow and smoothness as 3, but it improved with stuff like the ground pound and grappling, and it also included a glide pack, which I thought was a great addition. You know, I feel like that's something that should have been added long ago, like even in 2. Speaking of 2, it seems like they brought back a lot of like the crude humor.
Conway, this is the 3rd time the hot singles claiming to be nearby weren't actually.
So I'm honestly glad to see that the writing is going back to being good in a Borderlands game, because that's kind of what made 2 a little bit, was the writing and the dialogue and the humor and all that kind of stuff.
What is an esport?
All that shit in 3 just kind of blew it right out the window for me and made it a little hard to play at points. And I actually had a lot of moments where I had audibly giggled and chortled in my pants a little bit at the silly and wacky events that were unfolding in front of me. Another thing to mention about the writing here is they paid a lot of attention into how your Vault Hunters interacted with the world around you. You know, there are a lot more interaction clips with your Vault Hunter talking to someone that might be talking to them. You can see them in cutscenes, which I thought was really neat. You know, it kept all the customizations and all that stuff. That's something that they should have put in 3 as well. There's also a lot of points where your Vault Hunter will respond to the little quips that an enemy will throw at you in combat. Like a Ripper will tell you that they're going to eat your throat, and your character will be like, nah, I'm going to keep my throat, thank you very much, which I think is a really cool part of the game. It makes it feel more alive and less like a video game, which is something that studios should be going for. I also know the Vault Hunters will talk to each other with specific dialogue depending on who's playing with you. Like if you're playing a friend in multiplayer, they might like talk to each other while walking across a specific area or doing a main mission or something like that. It's the little things in a video game that really give me a stiffy, you know? Just like the many references that were made throughout the game, which isn't anything new to Borderlands. They've done this for a very long time in all of their games. I think it's a big staple in their media, which is, you know, nodding at other sources of media on the internet or movies or comic books or whatever. I always really like whenever they put in a reference or a nod to specific medias in any video game. It's something that will never get old to me.
That was pretty tough. I had to use almost 10% of my power.
I always go around hunting for little Easter eggs like that because it's fun. It shows a lot of care and fun went into the project. They even put like an old classic meme in as a whole weapon. It was called the Wombo Combo, and it was referencing a very iconic Smash Bros clip.
Happy feet, wombo combo. That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco. Oh, 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 Where you at?
Which, by the way, is one of the best guns in the game in my opinion. Like, this shit will butt-fuck pretty much anything that you shoot it at. Another thing that I thought was a really good thing about Borderlands 4 was the guns. You know, they all felt really fun to play with. Even the purples and the greens were usable. They felt fun to use again, which hasn't been the case since Borderlands 2. 3 was just all legendary loot. You could be level 2 and find a legendary and, you know, never pick up a green or purple gun ever again because you had a legendary, and that shit was kind of boring. I even found myself swapping legendaries for purples occasionally, which I think is a great thing to be doing, you know. If you're going to advertise a game with how many guns are in it, then make those guns fun and usable in the game, which is what they did here, and I'm happy about that. I've also heard that they were adding pearlescents back to the game, which haven't been a thing since Borderlands 2, I'm pretty sure, unless they did something for 3 I wasn't aware of or anything like that. But I think that'll be pretty fun to see again. Pearlescents were always pretty cool back in Borderlands 2. They were really fun to farm for and find. It's pretty cool that they're still doing raid bosses. I hope that they add more of a variety to them this time, because, you know, the raid bosses in 3 kind of all felt pretty lame. They felt mushed together as the same boss with a different skin. You know, other than maybe, like, you know, the Malawan takedown stuff. You know, I thought all that was fun, but All the raid bosses that they had released for 3 just kind of felt quick and stale in my opinion, and boring. You know, kind of like the group Goon Hamster after the second week just kind of gets a little stale and not fun to do anymore. But unfortunately, I do not have all positives to say about Borderlands 4. No. This is one stinky entree that has some poop water in it that I intend to talk about, so I'll go ahead and finally address the elephant in the asshole about this game, and that being the performance issues. They're dog shit, you know, some of the worst I've seen in recent times with video game releases. They even, like, came out with a patch that was supposed to fix a lot of these performance issues, which for the most part did not. People still complain about the same things. I had to buy a whole new power supply just to run this game, a whole new SSD actually, and it was really unfortunate. I don't like that gaming companies are now using different engines other than their own homemade engines or genuine good engines. You know, they're all using Unreal Engine 5 now, which, like, come on, man. Stop making games with this bullshit. Go back to using your own engines that you guys make, or even other trusted engines, because Unreal Engine 5 has shown time and time again, if you don't do it right, it's not going to perform well, and it's kind of just, it's poopy. It's bad. Stop doing it. Please. Not only that, but nobody wants to have to rely on frame generation and upscaling anymore. You know, not to mention the 90% of people that can't even afford the PC parts to run those things. At this point, that's not a premium game, Randy Pitchford. It's jumbled up poop water. I have pretty good specs. I've got a 5060 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, AMD Series 4 GPU, and I still have to run it on medium, teetering 50 to 60 FPS without frame generation or upscaling on. I don't want to have to use those things to play a game. That's kind of bullshit. Even on the lowest graphics presets, I only get 70 frames with upscaling and frame generation turned off. It's miserable. They need to move the whole game to a different engine or something, because it gets on my nerves a lot of the time when trying to play it, and I don't want to have to do that when playing a game. It also makes it hard to recommend to people that are wanting to find a new game to play that I would love to recommend to them, but it just is hard to recommend a game that's so terribly optimized to people. And I think a major cause of all of this as well might be the open world aspect of the game. Borderlands has always been an open world game, but not in the sense like this anymore. Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, you know, you would travel to different areas or different planets even, and they would all have their own personalities and ways to go about discovering different areas on those maps. Or you know, you could go from being in a drunken bar fight area to fast traveling to a medieval castle with a diamond pony. You know what I'm talking about, butt stallion. I mean, fuck, man, look how many places there are to go in Borderlands 2. It's a lot, but it's also cool because you got so many different places to go explore, and it gives you a whole lot more playtime, you know, more areas to go fucking shoot people in and shit. Borderlands 4 is different, though. Everything is in one giant Fortnite Battle Royale type island with 3 main areas. They all have bosses who have control over that area, with the main villain controlling the middle of the map. Wait a minute. And honestly, I don't really care for this. At least I'm torn between liking it and not liking it. I like the approach and all the new areas to discover, like the hidden mines with specific bosses, and even the silos and safe houses, which will give you rewards like SDUs when completing. But I really hate how limited it feels while playing. Like, I miss being able to go from being in one area that has a totally different vibe to going to another one that has a completely other different vibe that isn't, you know, just 3 main ones, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm even making sense here, man. I miss being able to go to different planets and shit. I think that was pretty cool. I think we should bring that back. I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool if in future DLCs they bring back being able to go to different areas or different planets, or even going to a whole different Fortnite island, you know, having another 3 areas to go and discover and wander about. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the open world. There are a lot of cool areas in Borderlands 4, but, like, it's just done differently. There's not as many variety as there was in 2 and 3, and I think that's kind of needed for a Borderlands game. I'm still, like I said, I'm still caught in between thinking about if I like it or not. And don't get me wrong, there are variety to the areas on this Far Cry wannabe map. A lot of them had me looking at them in awe because the game certainly does have some beautiful scenery. But don't get ahead of yourself, Pitchforward. Just because your team made a really beautiful looking game doesn't mean you can get away with saying all of that. I also really did not like the reward system. Now you have to manually claim rewards from missions in your inventory, and they're so forgettable to do that I still have one from, I think, like the first mission, and it's just waiting to be claimed, and I'm not claiming that shit. Why would I? I think it's just a pointless system. It's something that people are going to overlook, something that I overlooked at least. You know, I'm not able to speak for everyone else, but just kind of how I felt about it. Just kind of felt like they were trying to add a lot of quality of life improvements that ended up being unnecessary, but they also did add some quality of life improvements that I think were pretty necessary and really nice to have in a Borderlands game. You can now grab items from the ground, listing them as junk by pressing a different key, which is quick and helpful when you need to sell them or run out of an area really quick without wanting to look through your whole inventory, sorting out which ones you want to sell and which ones you don't want to accidentally sell and then have to buy back. But I think the main big win from Big Gearbox this time around was the Moxie's do-over machines. These things are peak quality of life. They're vending machines that you can walk up to and give it money to respawn a boss that you want to go farm. So now you don't gotta, like, unload and reload to farm a specific boss anymore, which was always time consuming, and this was kind of something that I always thought would be pretty cool for a Borderlands game. I won't lie though, it did have a certain charm to it that I kind of liked and that I kind of miss, you know, going to the main menu, loading back in really fast. It just kind of felt like Borderlands, you know? But honestly, I'm not complaining about it. It's really nice to have these. I also wanted to talk about the Volt Hunters real quick because I thought that they were pretty cool. I've only played as one of them so far, which, that being Rafa. I'm about level 40 on him, and he's honestly one of my favorite Volt Hunters I've played in a Borderlands game. They all have their own unique and memorable personalities. As a longtime Borderlands fan, I've played every Borderlands game. I've even seen the dog shit waste of money and time and lame excuse of the movie, which was a very interesting experience and one that I kind of wish I could forget about. I have to say, Borderlands 4 is kind of almost a return to what made Borderlands 2, as long as they end up fixing the performance issues, because honestly, it really does kind of ruin it, unfortunately. Because, man, it is hard to recommend this game to somebody who hasn't sold both their legs and a liver to buy a gaming rig, because you're not going to be able to play this on a previous generation computer. I've heard people struggle playing this game on a console, which is never a good thing. You know, you don't want your game to be struggling on the current gen's console. That's just kind of embarrassing.